This is Thailand Terrestrial Broadcasting coming to you from Bangkok. Good evening from monsoon-swept Thailand. It's a balmy as balmy can be, 89 degrees, and the dew point is 69%, which means it's wet. Really damn wet. The chances of rain, both now and in perpetuity, are equivalent to the inevitability of death. So as the old Thai expression goes, single ladies, please plant some lemongrass to stop the rain. Shit. Anyone? In today's news, all the angry old foreigners complaining about Chinese tourists may finally be getting their wish. Chinese tourist numbers are down 30% for the first 4 months of 2025. Chinese social media cited tales of kidnapping, organ harvesting, attacks by malevolent spirits, balcony plunges, and heavy chunks of stuff unceremoniously falling from great heights or otherwise falling apart as reasons for tourists avoiding the land of smiles. And while the government seeks ways to jumpstart the tourism industry, the xenophobic English-language press is doing its best to amplify stories with the news value of a wet fart in an empty parking lot at midnight. An Israeli woman has feet, and we all need to talk about that for a week. A Russian stuck in the 90s smuggled in enough hash to get half a hippie stoned. A Ukrainian woman had a Motley Crue moment in a hotel room. An Aussie kid did what 10 million Thai kids do underneath my bedroom window every single night: ride a motorbike a bit recklessly. Oh, and a drunk old Swede in Pattaya acted like a drunk old Swede in Pattaya. Riveting stuff. Forget about the fact that the top 1% of Thais control nearly 67% of the national wealth and own 80% of titled land. Let's instead devote the news-making apparatus to amplifying each and every indiscretion of the tens of millions of tourists who come here each year, at the government's behest. Perhaps they will succeed in making Thais hostile towards foreigners, upping the number of beatings in tourism areas by 12,000%. After all, with an aging and undereducated population, Thailand is well poised to become a knowledge economy that exports high value-added goods in the high-tech manufacturing and agricultural sectors. Tourism? Who needs that? Not angry old Brits who, after the effects of rampant inflation erosion on their modest pensions, can afford little more than excreting rage on ASEAN now. Lady drinks? No. Chong beer on a sunset 7-Eleven curb? If it's not too dear. In other news, the acid is really starting to kick in. Now that housekeeping is out of the way, let's get down to business. The topic of today's report is Thailand actually right for us? And by us, I mean me. And you too. Maybe. Some of you will say, of course, I've never been happier. The second I touched down on Thai soil, I stopped paying attention to politics back home and have been living a life of pure bliss. That's why I totally don't spend hours a day on Facebook arguing about Trump with other expats and bots. And you know what? That's fine. I don't necessarily think that our lives have to be lived via some grand narrative, or otherwise underpinned by some intellectually ironclad philosophy of being. No, everything doesn't always have to be so deep. Well, actually that's not true either. Depth is of the utmost importance. Depth of experience, truly being present in the moment, is pretty much all there is to this living business, no matter where you end up. So perhaps it's better to say that everything doesn't have to be so deeply thought out. There's a lot to be said about trusting your gut and not second-guessing feelings of general well-being. Because some lines of inquiry are turtles all the way down. Questions that beget questions ad infinitum. It's also a kick-ass song by Sturgill Simpson. Just like human personality, some things are more like an onion than a peach. If you unwrap all of the layers, you are not going to find some irreducible core. Instead, you are left with nothing. There's the distinct possibility that thinking about whether we love Thailand can create the conditions for not loving Thailand. Concepts can cloud out the actual moments we inhabit. Thailand is a place where it often serves you well to be living in your body more than your head. Figuratively, that is. I think we can all agree there's not a lot of readers on the SkyTrain or subway. Mindless phone scrollers, yes. Paperbacks, no. By and large, this is a land that amplifies the sensual over the intellectual. The outsized role that eating and talking about eating plays in daily discourse is one clear exponent of that. And vibing with that isn't necessarily a bad thing. I've certainly learned a lot about how to be in the moment with people who don't spend a great deal of time thinking about themselves or the world. Seeing how much better many of them get along with the business of living, it does make one wonder how often the tree of knowledge is a purveyor of poisoned fruit indeed. This is a place where practical wisdom is often elevated over book learning. Hierarchy has a tendency to stamp out critical thinking, although the country does have a rich tradition of student movements and universities being centers of intellectual dissent. It's a pretty common trope in online discourse among foreigners who marry this mysterious creature called an Isan wife to complain, or playfully mock their wives for a perceived lack of thinking, logic, or practicality. Some, despite their ribbing, find it all endearing. Others struggle knowing that Thais are never going to go about the business of living in a way that comports with their need for reason and order. It's a struggle we all encounter in one way or another. We all have our pet peeves. Many of mine revolve around the complete lack of urban planning and how pedestrians are the first to fall on the chopping block as a result. We all adjust in our own ways. For some, the adjustment is quite seamless. For others, this place only alienates them more and more as time goes by. Some people were built for their own sense of easy living and have found Thailand is the best place to do just that. Great. My question is not addressed to you. Keep on keeping on with your kick-ass life. You deserve it. However, to the seekers, the smokers, the whoremongers, drunks, and jokers, the English teachers trying to make a career of something better relegated to a gap year, and every other variant of those who ran from somewhere rather than came to Thailand, this line of inquiry may be of benefit to you. Because thought is what led you to Thailand. One day you were back home, and for whatever reason, you made the decision to up sticks and come here. Maybe for a year, maybe for a lifetime. What was the prompt? Was it because of a YouTube video? Perhaps you visited Pattaya years back while on furlough. If you are me, you met a pretty young thing as a teenager back home and the course of your life was changed forever. For whatever reason we first stumbled upon Thailand, the cliched reasons that motivate people to come by the millions are clear. Delicious food, lower rents, beach living, and for dudes, if not a few women, hot babes. On the surface, these are all pretty good things, but have you thought about what is lost in the exchange? Because after a certain amount of time goes by, there is always the possibility you will wake up one day and realize, I am wasting, or have already wasted, my life. A lot of the old heads will tell you that Thailand is not for young men, not just because seeing young Westerners date the Thai girls who are actually smoking hot and deeply in love with their views takes the air out of the pay-for-play illusion. The good ones don't begrudge the young men their youth or fun, and they certainly had their own fun when they were young. A lot of them are having a hell of a lot of fun now. The issue is a different one. What kind of life can you really build in Thailand? A lot would say, nothing like the one you could build back home. Their argument is fairly simple. Make your career and your money back home. Then come to Thailand and live on the fruits of your labor. Once again, some of these guys are simply trying to pull up the drawbridge. Their appeal to finances is really a pretext to deny others what they desire for themselves. But others have their hearts in the right place, and whether you agree with them or not, are worth hearing out. Because whatever you think about the social situation in the West, which I'll leave to another video, economically, there's a hell of a lot more opportunity for us. Hell, I knew a Chinese girl in DC with a great job at Amtrak whose parents helped her buy a townhouse in a Virginia suburb. I reckon she's an American citizen by now and enjoys the right to be renditioned to El Salvador due to a clerical error just like every other red-blooded American. God bless the USA. No prohibition on land ownership. No giving the majority of her business to a nominee who could pull the rug out from under her at any moment. No cops shaking her down in the street. She had more rights in America the second she stepped off the plane than any foreigner who's been in Thailand for 30 years. Apparently that does not include the right to due process, but hey, you can't win them all. Sure, there's always the possibility you can parlay something specific about Thailand into a future career, like speaking Thai perfectly as a pretty blonde kid and making the most annoying content in the history of YouTube. As for me, I was a lost young dude attracted to the wider world. Peace Corps brought me to Central Asia, where I was able to learn some Russian. I later went to teach English in Russia for a couple of years, but while some of my co-workers did nothing but convert their salaries into beer tokens and attempt to mitigate increasingly worse hangovers, I kept studying Russian and learned about Russian history and politics. That got me editing and translation work, all of that eventually helped me get a foot in the journalism door, helping me build something of a career in the process. When I first arrived in Washington, D.C. to work at the Voice of America, two old friends from Moscow hugged me in the corridor of that nuclear fallout shelter of a building on Independence Avenue. The very person who recommended me for the job is a close friend who used to sit with me in what we dubbed the Soviet bar just off of Tverskaya Boulevard. We drank shitty beer, argued politics, and rooted our stations in life, along with the hangover metro rides that came with the morning. He is currently a soldier fighting on the side of Ukraine, a popular YouTuber, and a man who has always battled his insecurities in search of a better, more meaningful life. I've met people of pretty incredible quality who regularly put me onto other opportunities. You can likewise work to bring people like that into your life in Thailand, but it's a hell of a lot easier not to. So yes, you can go abroad and make something out of the unique opportunities that exile will bring to you, but I gotta say, a lot of the other people we met in Moscow all of those years back never did shit. They lived some variation of the same day over and over, never investing in themselves or anything else. Some of them are still in Moscow, still pretending that decades living out of a Khrushchevka with a failing liver isn't a result of a lifetime of running in place on a dead-end road. Their friends allowed them to feel comfortable in the gutter, and never once suggested turning over to stare at the stars. Philosophically, there's nothing inherently wrong with being content with a simple life. Living for today, not keeping up with the Joneses, not tacking your life onto progress for the sake of progress. These can all be very good things. If you really are satisfied with teaching English, living in a prefabricated Soviet hovel, and having no real savings to fall back on, salut. Personally, I'd still take that life over 40 years of 80-hour work weeks at a Midwestern accounting firm. But if you are merely scared, lazy, or in denial about who you are or what you really want out of life, a life of hiding will quickly become hell. Especially when you get older, your health demands more of your attention, and thoughts of one day not wanting to work start popping into your head. To be fair, it's a lot easier being poor in Thailand than Russia. Just ask the 10 million or so Russians living in Phuket on a shoestring budget. But the benefits of sunlit Southeast Asia over Eurasian gloom will not forever stave off the crisis of being. Based off of a few of the jaded Thailand-based YouTubers I've come across, more than a few red-pilled dudes who fled here have clearly found themselves stuck in a dead end. I'm talking about the ones who came here when they were younger, chased girls, and stayed drunk pretty much all of the time. There was a time when just making enough money to buy beer tokens, spending an outsized amount of their time with ladies who effectively have the education and mentality of a 13-year-old girl back home, and eating cheap food that is filled with salt and sugar, seemed enough to sustain the ride. For a time, they were unable to conceptualize they would one day get old, and their bodies, souls, and wallets would eventually feel the strain of that lifestyle. The wake-up call normally hits around the age of 30, the age when true bohemians start getting separated from the in-denial runners. That niggling feeling creeps in that you haven't done much with your time. 10 years in Thailand and you didn't learn the language. You may or may not have done a degree back home, but apart from make-believing you were teaching English, you didn't pick up any actual skills. Yes, you're 10 years older, but haven't moved one step farther in life. What's more, you are constantly inundated with the ravings of bitter old men who clearly held on long after things went off the rails. Anyone who's been to Pattaya can see where it ends for a number of them. The steps of 7-Eleven, and then stepping off the balcony at night. The Farang Flying Club is a very stark reminder of how hard the Thailand fall can be. No, the end result of men who did exactly as you did is there, plain as day to see. And it's not just your body getting old. The distractions get old too. The bright lights dim. The sensual becomes more profane. Relationships that are never predicated on being loved or seen start to make you feel very much unloved and unseen. Once again, this isn't to say that a man's life should be lived strictly within the confines of capitalist expectation. Enlightened man might be sipping Chong beer on the steps of your local 7-Eleven right now. The whole Fight Club bit about working to buy things you don't need and other junior high school philosophy? Point taken. Hell, I even have a friend who spent 15 years studying meditation at various ashrams. He was also a trained clinical psychologist by that time and clearly had the means to explore other avenues of the human experience. His own interest now is synthesizing what he learned through decades of Western psychological practice and deep study and practice of Eastern religion and philosophy. He's even provided counseling to Myanmar war refugees, so no wasted time there at all. I cannot stress this enough. It's not about mindless acquisition. It's about mindful action and being. You can do anything with your life, but you do have to do something meaningful with your life. I myself realize I definitely lost out on making money by spending so much of my life as a vagabond, but I also get to see and experience worlds when I stand on the side of the nowhere road I came from. You cannot have it all, but you do have to try and strike a balance. My enlightened therapist friend would be the first person to tell you that we live our life in systems, and there's no getting around that unless you are completely self-reliant and want to go off the grid. He will likewise tell you that utopian ashrams or solitary Smoky Mountain hermetical living aren't scalable for modern human society, and you certainly aren't replicating that lifestyle easily here in Thailand, with visa runs, 90-day reports, and TM30s keeping you well within the grid. In this system we're all currently stuck in, the only viable, scalable way to actualize yourself is to free up your time to do meaningful things. And money sure as hell helps free up your time. A lucky few make money doing the very thing they were put on this earth to do. Passion and success in perfect harmony. And I don't think you have to be rich to convert your time into meaningful activity. There's no static sum anyone should aspire to. I think everyone basically needs enough money that they don't need to think about money too much. For one person in Thailand, that figure could be $2,000 a month. For another, $20,000, if not $200,000. I really don't think the figure matters too much, assuming you're not using money to paper over your own unhappiness. Because as many a man in Thailand will tell you, distractions sure as hell can get expensive. Likewise, you shouldn't hide behind philosophy to claim you are satisfied with very little if the anxiety of not being able to cover your actual needs keeps you up at night. One YouTube personality I'm very fond of says he lives like a king on $1,500 a month in Social Security. He also cannot afford health insurance or a girlfriend. I can't speak to his actual feelings about giving up on female companionship, seemingly forever. That really is a personal choice, and none of my business. But there's nothing kingly about not having health insurance. No one needs a Ferrari. Everyone needs a nurse from time to time. These are the types of essential things that people will compromise on when they're not being entirely honest with themselves. Beyond money, do you have the skills that allow you to stay exactly where you want to be? I am currently trying to answer that question for myself. I came here with a big enough buffer to give me some time to explore a few options. But with AI steamrolling through my, and likely your industry, I cannot tell you exactly what my own future in Thailand or anywhere else will be. Which is to say, I'm not above it all, or the questions I'm presenting. Other dudes, some younger than me, some older, have already answered these questions for themselves. More than a few of them got sizable inheritances, which sure as hell helps. I'm never going to be some sort of guru. My disjointed trek in life has been interesting, but not one I'd recommend to others. But it has given me a good deal of insight, and if someone as neurotic as me can get some peace out of this living business, chances are it will be even easier for you. And my question about whether Thailand is really right for you, or me, cuts deeper than mere matters of practicality. Money, skills, health insurance, and opportunities to meaningfully express ourselves are wonderful things, but they are also only a complement to the true substrate of your life, self-acceptance, and the ability to have happiness and peace in the moment. For me, a good life entails being as present as possible and being the best version of yourself that you can be, begging the question, can you be the best you in Thailand? Because the double-edged sword of Thailand's live and let be mentality is that it's probably the easiest place on earth to be the worst version of yourself. Do you go to bed every night knowing you basically flushed the day down the drain? Because it seems like a lot of folks here just do that. I've certainly lost days doing that. Hell, I pretty much spent the last week doing that rather than studying Thai or working on anything productive. I feel like shit for it. So here I am, trying to get myself back on track. For me, there's a constant struggle between virtue and vice. It will always be a struggle. The struggle is worth it. You find yourself in the fight, even if it's one you lose more often than not. A lot of people flying the flag for Thailand are all in on Team Vice. Many of them have not figured out the difference between pleasure and happiness, because booze, beaches, and babes can sure feel like happiness in the short term. I don't think there's anything wrong with booze, beaches, or babes. I throw in bikes too. Goddamn, I miss my Triumph and the winding mountain roads back home. But for me, these things are more like the spices of life. They're not meant to be the meal. I think the Swiss Jungian psychologist Marie-Louise von Franz summarized it perfectly. There is no satiation point for a spiritual longing by physical means. But spiritual longing is exactly what leads a lot of men to Thailand, and yet they express that longing through a Sisyphean jog on the hedonic treadmill. Anyone who's been here long enough knows that many fall off the ride. They'll tell you a disproportionate number of their friends and acquaintances have died at relatively young ages. Those deaths are almost always related to lifestyle choices. And for anyone who's seen friends hit the later stages of addiction, you quickly realize that addicts die long before they die. Every other manifestation of light fades. They no longer feel the heady heights of their preferred drug. All they have left is being comfortably, or not so comfortably, numb. If you wake up in the morning and are merely waiting for the next opportunity to get drunk, stoned, or laid, can you really say you are happy in Thailand? And it's not just traditional addictions. Can you enjoy a meal with friends, or your morning coffee, without staring at your phone or looking for another distraction, rather than being present? Because you can stare at your phone for 7 hours a day anywhere. Sure, it's better to stare at a phone on a beach, but then ask yourself, why isn't a beach enough? Why can't the most beautiful place on earth hold your attention for more than 5 minutes? My 20-something next-door neighbor seems to do nothing more than smoke weed, cough up his lungs, and descend the elevator a couple of times a day, glued to his phone, picking up food from Grab. Is this really his Thailand dream? Maybe it is. If all he needs is a box to escape to, I guess it's cheaper to do it here, rather than at home. And maybe you in fact are living your Thailand dream too. I myself need to be careful not to project. I've watched my own perceptions of Thailand shift over time. Moments that were once filled with magic now feel mundane. The constant pursuit of novelty is a trap. The surface of Thailand glitters. The depths are murkier and far more daunting to grapple with. But without depths, there's nothing to hold you up once the flood hits. Like a mangrove, prop roots will anchor you against inundation and take the sting out of life's waves when they hit. That is especially true when we try to balance ourselves on shifting, sandy ground. For better and worse, my mind was made for picking things apart. I know the answer is to get back into my body and into the moment. And god damn it, that is hard. But even for people less prone to psychic autopsy than me, giving the foundations of your life a good kick every now and then to make sure they won't fall over at the first sign of trouble isn't a bad thing. Because you too might wake up one day and question what you're seeing in the illuminated haze of the Thailand dream. The permissibility of excess in this psychedelic funhouse that once seemed like freedom very well may become a trap. Or it might not be any of that at all. You might simply say this is no longer the place for me to get the most out of life, and it's time to move on. In my own Thailand experience, I've learned that people who come here for a reason end up much happier than people who are merely running from somewhere else. Which cuts to something deeper. For people who really have all of their ducks in a row, they're going to live a good life no matter where they go. For they will be so deeply rooted in the moment, and their own vista on existence, joy will inevitably shine through. And they might also prefer 4 seasons to 2, and live on a farmhouse in Vermont rather than a villa in Phuket. Yes, sometimes it really is that simple. To all of you who woke up today to the sound of rain or ocean waves, if not an ocean of cars rumbling by, I hope you're getting the most out of your Thailand life. I hope this is the best place on earth for you to be the best you. But if deep down you realize that Thailand is just the easiest place to run to escape a pain you blame on back home, but deep down know is a reflection of how you feel about yourself, I see you. We're all here figuring it out one day at a time. Because the secret really is learning how to live a good life anywhere you go, and then finding the best place to call home. And as the sun sets on this day, I hope each and every one of you has found yourself at home tonight.